All
Hi,
right, we're
everyone.
live.
Happy
Hi.
Friday.
Yeah, happy Friday, everyone.
Friday before a nice 2-week vacation where all of our kids are going to be home from school driving us crazy. Yay!
Mine started today. The kids are home officially today, so there's that.
Well, I just got back from a classroom party and it was fun. And I have donuts on my desk. It's fine. But thank you guys so much for joining us today. We're so excited. We were just chatting with Joey a little bit. Hi. Yeah, feel
Hello.
free to jump in the chat and say hello. We're so happy to see who joins us today. I know this is an important topic, especially because this is what surrogacy is all about. Like there's so many other moving parts. We talk about the legal, we talk about the medical screening, we talk about all of these things, but really the heart of everything is that relationship between the intended parents and the surrogate, and navigating is such a unique, like there's no other relationship in your life ever like it. And there's not a lot of people that you can go to for wisdom and advice on how to navigate some of the tricky situations that come up and some of the questions that you have. So we're really, really grateful, Joey, that we have you here today because you are kind of the perfect guy to be answering some of these questions for us for a multitude of reasons. Do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and tell everyone a little bit about your background? Some of them might actually know you. I think some of the women that are going to be logging on today might have already done a psych screening with you.
Oh, wow. Yes. Well, thank you so much for, having me on today. I'm really excited to talk about this topic because, like you said, it is really something that's really important. And so just to introduce myself, so my name is Joey Guzman-Kuffel. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. And I'm also a dad through surrogacy. So I kind of have those two components, and I'm really passionate about it because it was my experience with surrogacy that really, inspired me to transition from doing the type of mental health that I was practicing in to opening up my own private practice that specializes in assisting, with third party reproduction, intended parents, and navigating those, this complex, life changing process, and also screening surrogates and donors. And so I'm really passionate about this. And I apply my psychological education and insight along with the intended parent piece to be able to help others with this process. Um, so that's a little bit about me. And also, I have a 2-year-old daughter. I'm really excited. Although I have a 2-year-old daughter, my journey was really long. It was probably about 6 years. And so each year that I was on that process, I learned a lot about patience and, and gone through different surrogates to get to the one that really allowed us to get to where we're at now. Everyone was amazing and great, but unfortunately, sometimes there's things that happen that don't allow you to move forward with the person that you were matched with, and that's okay. But today we're going to be talking about building relationships with your intended parents. And so I guess where I can start is by just saying that it is important when you get into this process to both as a surrogate and both as an intended parent to understand what type of relationship you're looking for, when it comes to your surrogate or intended parent. I think that's where you need to definitely start and understanding, okay, I definitely want to build a friendship with this person, or maybe I don't want a friendship with this person. I just kind of want it to be a little bit more hands off, or just kind of understanding what you're comfortable with. And I think that's going to be the key to start off with, so that when you are interviewing with a surrogate or intended parent, you're really looking for that person or a couple that's going to match you on what you're looking for. Because I think we all deserve to have that amazing experience that we want to have when we're going on such a unique journey. Um, and so one of the things that I was talking to Sunshine about was, my experience and what helped me as an intended parent build a great relationship with the surrogate that I worked with. And it was really understanding again what our needs were and what we were looking for. And being transparent about, certain things. Like, for example, for me, one of the things that I was, really looking for was a friendship. I wanted to be a friend with the surrogate because you guys do so many amazing things for us, and you give us the gift of life. And so I wanted to have a really strong connection because it was a big thing. And so I communicated this to my surrogate, and she was like, yes, I definitely want to build a friendship. That's what I'm looking for too. And so once she understood me and she gave me her feedback about that's what she was looking for, I got really excited. And then we kind of just started talking about all the other different topics that we need to, review and go over about the surrogacy process. And I started to feel more of a connection with her. And I was like, okay, this feels really good. And then I felt comfortable to be like, okay, I have some anxieties around certain things. Like, I'm excited, and I'm also someone who wants to know what's going on. And so I have a fear of flying, and I have to, use my own coping mechanisms to help me with that process. And my surrogate was a flight attendant. She is a flight attendant. And so I was like, oh my gosh, like, how am I going to work this out with having that fear of like flying and knowing that she's going to be flying all over and she's going to be probably pregnant with our baby. And so I was very honest about this with her. And she was just like, you know what? I can walk you through what it's like to fly. I can tell you what everything means on the airplane and all of these things. And she really kind of even facilitated that process so that my anxiety level was going to go down. And so, again, just being transparent about what your fears are, what your concerns are, what your, what you like, what you don't like, all of these things are important. Just like in any relationship that you're building, it's important to kind of have this type of information. And it's the same thing with your gestational carrier or your intended parent, so you can get an understanding. And one of the things that I appreciated very much with my surrogate that made it easy for us to develop, the great relationship that we have, is that she really heard what I was looking for and what my concerns were. And then throughout the journey, it was like she was like one step ahead of me. Like, so before I even thought like, oh, I'm going to call her to see if, when her appointments are, she had already done that. She's like, these are when my appointments are, which was great for me because, again, that reduced my anxiety. And it made me feel comfortable that I didn't have to kind of like tippy toe around, her, or just kind of feeling like, oh, I'm going to be invading her space too much. Like, I don't want to ask too many questions. She kind of gave it all to me ahead of time. And I really appreciated that. And that really helped me kind of just feel comfortable, and my anxiety kind of just went away. And it just really facilitated the process for me. And so I know I've just kind of shared a lot with you right now. So I'm hoping that, maybe some of you have some questions that we can answer and kind of just continue the conversation.
Yeah, that's a lot of really helpful information. I think it brings up a lot of really good points, and really with communication in any kind of relationship is kind of anticipating what questions somebody's going to have and answering them before they're asked is really like, I think that's really important. Like, for instance, I have this information about when my appointments are. I could wait for you to ask for that information, or as soon as I get it, I could just give it to you because I know you're going to need it at some point, so I can ask those things. Or I know sometimes that intended parents are going to appointments with their surrogate when they're close enough to do that, which is really awesome. So I wonder how navigating those things is too, and like arranging around each other's schedules and stuff. I know I did put a poll up to see where you guys are at in the process. So we have 2 that are recently matched and 2 that are cycling and preparing for transfer, which is really exciting. So everybody who did answer the poll is already in starting that relationship with their intended parents, which is really an exciting and kind of a nerve-wracking time. I don't know what questions. Is there anything off the top of your head, Casey, that you would like to ask Joey about what's important in those early stages? One thing that stands out to me, though, sorry, real quick, I just thought of it, is some agencies are asking surrogates and intended parents not to start talking to one another until after legal. And I've had 3 journeys with 2 different sides of that. So one agency let us start building that relationship right away after matching, and we communicated and we became Facebook friends like immediately before I started medications or anything. And then on the other end, we didn't speak to each other after matching until we cleared legal. And I feel like that made things harder. But I don't know, Joey, if you have any insight on why agencies are recommending that wait time, and
Yeah,
what are some pitfalls
that
or
is such a great question, Sunshine, and I'm glad that you brought that up because I do go over this piece in my sessions with intended parents or even with surrogates when we talk about like the matching process. And to be honest, I don't have a specific answer like why do agencies prefer that type of method. I will say that for me, when I started the process and was matching with my surrogate, I did get that same type of like information from my agency, like waiting before. I, however, was like, I just got off this cool conversation, like call with her. Like, I want to continue chatting with her. And so I was a little insisting as to like, well, can I just get her information? Like, I want to just check in with her a little bit more. And my agency was flexible enough after I asked to kind of, allow me to get her email. And then we kind of went back and forth. And then we exchanged numbers. And then we were talking and going back and forth in communication before we even signed legal. But I thought that was a really neat process because we continued on that energy and we felt more comfortable with one another. So then when we got into the legal aspect, like we were okay, like we felt secure about this match. So personally for me, I think it's a good thing to, continue to chat even, before you go into legal. That's from a personal standpoint, but I really don't know, again, why agencies prefer or recommend the opposite.
So and if I was going to add a little bit to that, when I was part of the agency side of it, I seen kind of a little bit of variety of what reasons would be for that. In some instances where the intended parents maybe have struggled, gone through so much to get to this point of loss, and or have had this as their second or third surrogate trying to get this worked out and get to that next stage. And maybe the parents suggesting and saying, let's wait until we get to a place where we know this is going to actually develop and move forward so that we're not investing our heart into this and then it's still not working out, or the surrogate not being able to move forward for some reason. So I've seen that. And then I've also seen some of the agency side of it just to protect both parties, to make sure that they haven't invested that time. But I've also seen it where some of the intended parents will say, no, I want to start talking with my surrogate and build that relationship. So it's interesting when I have some of the women that I've helped and they ask, I want to start talking with my intended parents, but they haven't introduced us yet. And so I try to put in their mind that maybe there's a little bit more behind the scenes as to why they're putting that off and holding off on starting that relationship. Have you seen that in just kind of your day-to-day working with these surrogates and the agencies?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch the last part, Casey.
Have you noticed or seen with some of these agencies that you're working with, what is their reason for holding off? Have they shared what those explanations might be?
So I'm glad actually that you kind of explained, some of the reasons why they would put this off. And I think after you've explained it, that makes a lot of sense to me. From a psychological standpoint, like it really makes a lot of sense for me. I think that when I have these conversations, it isn't clear. So no one has a clear idea as to why can't we not talk to them. And that's where we're just kind of just thinking about, so, why? But having explained what you did now makes a lot of sense. And I'm really glad that you shared that, because now I have that information and I can use that in my conversations. Because you're right. I think that, sometimes this process isn't, just like smoothly, right? And by the time we get to where we're probably have already gone through so many other struggles and losses. And so when we get to the point when we're like, okay, we're going to match and we feel comfortable with who we're, going to be matching, that it's important to also kind of have that, layer of kind of protection, just to like, okay, let's just kind of follow through the steps so that if everything goes well, then everything goes well. But if there's something that is like a hiccup there, then at least like you're not going to be extremely like hurt by the process in some way. So yeah.
I think that makes sense. But I feel like agencies should give parents and surrogates, or maybe talk about that when they're talking about setting match preferences and making sure that question comes up prior to having the match call so that everybody can be on the same page, rather than I think the agency is kind of setting this hard line. Because I
Mhm.
feel like I had a lot of struggles in building my relationship with my intended mother for my second journey because we didn't talk. And there were some things that she had some fears and some anxieties that she wasn't able to communicate with me. And they kind of came out in legal when we had some disagreements about some things that were in the contract, or I just wasn't sure. We weren't sure about each other's intentions. And I feel like if we had had more opportunity to chat while we were getting up to that point, I would have known 100% what her intentions were, because once we got through it, we were always on the same page, and we just didn't know that we were because the agencies were keeping us kind of sequestered. And I think, I don't know, I guess maybe giving surrogates and intended parents more autonomy in making that decision would be smarter.
Mhm.
Well, that's a
Well,
question
and
for agencies, though. So
yeah.
we do have some questions popping up in the chat that I want to make sure we get to. So um, Brittany wants to know she is matched and her IPs have been through so much. She wants to get them a gift at transfer and wants to give them something special and wonders what would be a good gift idea. And what do you feel about gifts coming from a surrogate to an intended parent? What are your thoughts on that, Joey?
I think that, I never thought about like, oh, getting a gift from her. It wasn't like never in mind because she was already giving me the biggest gift, which was, being pregnant with my daughter and giving me that opportunity to become a parent. Um, but I think it's sweet that, when you do, because a lot of the times we're also just kind of very focused on like, oh my gosh, we want to be there for the surrogate, we want to support her. Like, what do you need? That sometimes we lose you know, like what we're going through in a sense. And so when we get like nice little gifts, it's always cute to remind us like, oh, like we're pregnant, like we're also pregnant too. Like, and it's cute to kind of get like a gift. One of the things that my surrogate did for me at the beginning when we were at the transfer is she sent my husband and I a pair of socks, and they had like a lucky charm, and it said something about lucky transfer day or something like that. But something as simple as that was like so cute. And I was like, yes, we have to wear these. And so, we wore them for, I think, we wore them on transfer day, but we also kind of wore them like, I want to say like for a week, I think, because we were just like wanting to hold on to that hope. But something like that was really cute. And I think it's always nice, to receive, a gift from your surrogate. So if you want to give your intended parent a gift, I think it's great. I think it's always just kind of, like when you ask about like, what is a good gift to give to them, I think it's really about understanding, like your IP's journeys, like what was that about, just kind of listening, because sometimes it's just like the small little things that can just be, cute, instead of like really racking your brain of like, okay, do I need to get something big or something expensive or anything like that. I don't think it's about like that, anything like that with intended parents. It's just like the cute little things, even just like a cute little card that says good luck on transfer day or something like that is just really cute.
One of my surrogates had a great idea, and so now I've stole it and I'm sharing it with everybody that I can. Is after they have confirmation of heartbeat, when they're in there on that ultrasound and they hear that heartbeat, recording it and then taking it and putting it in a bear to give to the intended parents so they have it and can listen to it and have it as a keepsake. So feel free to steal it, ladies, because I was like, why didn't I think of that? That's genius.
That is awesome. That is really
Yeah.
sweet. I think I shared with Sunshine that the other thing that our surrogate did for us kind of along the way is, she got the ultrasound pictures, and she would kind of send us like little like, frames with them and stuff like that. And I thought that was so cute, like a little book. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this is just so sweet. Like just those simple things can just really melt to like my heart. Like this is like amazing that she took the time to do this and that she thought about us, to give us kind of this, experience. And I'm really appreciative of her, doing that. And the other thing that she did towards the end was she created this book, where it kind of had like these fictional characters resembling myself, my husband, and our daughter, and kind of like what our journey was. And I was like, oh my gosh, like how did she even come up with this? Like this is like wow. And I treasure that book. Like I have it there. My daughter's 2 years old, and I've read that book to her and we've gone over it. I haven't given it to her yet because I'm afraid that she's going to tear the pages. So I'm going to wait till she's a little bit older so that she doesn't like mess up the book or anything like that, because I'm just like, oh my gosh, that is one of the greatest gifts ever. And I have that and I can share that with my daughter. And it was just really sweet of her to do that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I was just thinking, and I wanted to tell the ladies, I think as a surrogate, and I've learned over the years, and just kind of going back to maybe the intended parents' fears, when you guys have your match call, it's kind of rainbows and butterflies. Everybody's got those excited feelings and really hoping that this is going to move forward. So maybe not during that conversation, but if you were to go to your agency and advocate for yourself and say to them, you know, I'm excited about this match, but I want to make sure I understand my intended parents' fears and reservations. Can you let them know that if they have any fears or reservations, I want to be aware of those so that I can anticipate that and try to lower that stress level for these intended parents? And you can advocate for yourself for that. And I think the agencies will probably even appreciate it, knowing that, wow, who is this amazing person who's wanting to have and help a family, but also wanting to step up and build this relationship that's going to be healthy and strong. So Phil, you guys, I think I say this to all of you ladies all the time, but you advocating for yourself is such a huge thing. And then that can build that relationship, or maybe understanding why they've held off on you guys communicating and starting that relationship prior to legal, or whatever that looks like. And then you can have a better understanding of maybe where the parents are coming from for that intention with everything. So that was just a thought that I wanted to close from our further conversation a minute ago. So
I think that's really, really, really such a simple, easy thing to do, and can really avoid so much trouble in building those relationships if you are aware if there are certain things that they're anxious about, or because everybody has their own little fears and anxieties and vulnerabilities that maybe sometimes even just having somebody ask you, you haven't even thought about what are those things, and then you can think about them, and then you can answer that question and ask that question of yourself too, and maybe communicate that. What are some things that you're worried about or that are important to you as far as communication goes, and how often, and are, you know, do you know, is email harder for you, or are phone calls hard for you because you're so busy during the day, but maybe emails are easier because you can kind of answer an email at 2 a.m. when you're up in the middle of the night with pregnancy insomnia or whatever the case is. You know, we all have different styles and modes of communication. So maybe making sure that everyone knows what each other's mode is so you can have balance, I think, is important.
absolutely.
Yeah. And that's another way that you can support yourself throughout this process, is like understanding, okay, so what is that other person going through? Like so understanding what their needs are so that you can support one another, because it really is a give and take, you know, it's a relationship. And, you know, you want to be able to, you know, validate the other person as much as you want to be validated, be heard, be seen, and all of these things. And communication is really important. And so, you know, one of the things that I always, you know, talk about in my consultations and evaluations when it comes to the matching process is really just, you know, highlighting the importance of also allowing some space in match meetings to discuss, again, like expectations around relationship and communication, because those match calls are really quick, and there's so much to talk about in such a short period of time, and there's so many topics that you need to touch on that are important, that I always say, you know, get it in there, just kind of like allow space to talk about like what are your expectations around the relationship, what are their expectations of the relationship, what's your communication style like, if there's conflict, like, you know, how do you resolve that, like what, you know, because, you know, just like in any relationship, you know, there's always going to be space and room for miscommunication or disagreements. And it's okay to have those disagreements and, you know, and not see eye to eye on things. But, you know, how are we going to go about it? Like, how do we move forward from that? How are we okay with you seeing it one way and me seeing it in another way? And, you know, because again, we're coming together with folks that, you know, have different life experiences, right? And you can connect on this one amazing thing, but we all come from different places, different backgrounds, and have different experiences. And we want to make sure that we're mindful of those things. And if we disagree, it is okay, but how do we communicate about that? Because I think delivery and communication is really important. And we want to maintain this so that we can have those respectful relationships throughout the surrogacy process.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I know Lael had a question. Do you want to ask that or read that one?
Let's see. So we have a question about things that need to be in the contract for legal, but how do you ask, like, for instance, about pumping and supplying breast milk? I'm not sure if she's gotten to her contract, but I think every contract that I've ever seen has something specific about pumping and breast milk. And it's usually something that nobody really knows up front. You can't have this expectation, I'm going to provide breast milk and it's going to be this amount and I'm going to do it for this long, because you don't know how you're going to feel and you don't know what your body's going to do and you don't know how your relationship's going to develop. And, you don't know where your intended parents are going to be staying and how far and how much budget they have for shipping, because shipping breast milk is, oh my gosh, it's so expensive. It's insane. So I think there's always something language in the contract that if you provide breast milk, there's like the intended parents will pay for the supplies and the shipping and like a weekly stipend for you during that time. But as far as whether or not they want to, do most people talk about that in matching, or do you wait and see how the pregnancy progresses before you kind of talk about that?
So for me, there was already a lot of things that I understood about surrogacy when I went into the process. So I knew that I wanted to feed my child breast milk. And so I knew going in conversations, like checking in, like, was she open to that idea? So having that conversation again in that initial match meeting is like, hey, what are your thoughts on pumping breast milk? We would really like that opportunity just to see where she was at, so kind of, again, having the conversation. She was amazing about it. And she said, I'm very much open to it. And then from there, we just kind of went about like, so what does it look like for you guys? Like, what are you planning? Like, how long do you plan for me to, pump breast milk? And if she's able to, right? Because sometimes, maybe the milk doesn't come in or something like that. And that's okay. So just kind of having that conversation and seeing where you're at. And as an intended parent, we understand that, if it's there, great. And if it's not, it's still okay. But just kind of having that discussion. And then obviously it does get written into your contract about what is our plan or something like that. Now, I know that pumping breast milk takes a lot of time and it's a lot of work. So for me, I just said, I think my husband and I said, we would only do it for about like, a month and a half, and whatever she's able to pump in that time frame, then we'll just store it. She was amazing. So we actually, within that time frame, we were able to collect enough milk for 6 months. So wow. That was great. And so we were able to store that. But again, I've heard other stories where it doesn't always work out that way. But again, just having a conversation about it and knowing that both parties, will have to kind of accept like what it is, like, if it's able to, fine. If not, then still it's okay.
Yep.
And we have another really good question. And I don't know, maybe Casey and Joey, both of you might be good to do this, because Casey spent a lot of years in case management too. So maybe both of you will have some insight to provide for this. But she has matched with this couple in May, and they've talked briefly twice. She hasn't really connected with the mother. They've talked briefly twice. Do I break the ice or wait patiently for her to feel comfortable talking to me? Father and I have a great relationship. So she has a better communication relationship with the intended father. And it sounds like the intended mother's a little bit more reserved and standoffish. And I don't know what their background is. If you want to provide any more background, feel free. But what are your guys' thoughts on that?
I guess the question I would have is it a group message where the three of you guys are on that communication? And it's hard because if, I know if it's an intended mother, my intended mother had gone through a lot of loss. And so she was reserved in the very beginning, and she had shared that she was going to be reserved in the very beginning because mostly there was a lot of milestones that she hadn't even made it to. And so for every step that she kept taking, it was like, okay, yes, we made it, but she still had that anxiety, that fear behind her that it's still going to break, it's still going to go wrong. And and so for her, it took a little bit of time in that, coming to some of those appointments. So I guess my question is, how far in the process have you gotten? Did you say that where you're at, if you're pregnant?
She said they've matched in May. But I'm not sure if they've done legal
right.
or.
I guess and this is just more some insight from seeing some of these cases in my own personal experiences. I saw my intended mother open up when it came to these appointments where she finally got to hear the heartbeat, where she got to see the baby growing, and it alleviated some of that stress for her. So I think, in just maybe the very beginning, it might be a little slower, but she will come around, I hope anyways, for the sake of just for you guys to build that relationship. I don't know, Joey, you probably have more insight to that than I do.
Yeah, well, I think when it comes to working with an intended mother, like you said, there's a lot of loss there, a lot of grief. There's a lot that comes with an individual coming to terms with having to build their family in this alternative way. And so I have met with a lot of individuals in this situation, and I think for you as a surrogate, it is important to understand that whatever she's going through, and if she hasn't really been connecting with you, that it's really not about you. So hopefully you're not taking that personally. It's just she's had a journey, and it takes some time to come to terms with where they're at. But one thing that you can do in building that relationship is just kind of letting her know that you're there for her, or just maybe asking her, like, if there's anything that you need, please let me know. Or is there anything that I can support you in this process? And just kind of leaving it at there, because you've already kind of opened the door and saying, hey, I'm here from you. And is there anything that I can do to support you? And it's up to her to just kind of be able to let you know, well, this is what you can do, or this is what you can't do, or that type of thing. And then it's just kind of like starts to develop from there. But just kind of, letting it be where it's at, so that you're not over pushing or anything like that, where she might take it, or she might get hurt by that. Just kind of allowing her the space to come around, but also letting her know that you're there for her. And if there's any information that she needs, that the door is there, and that she can give you a call, send you a text, an email, whatever it is. But just at least that she knows that you're there for her. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah. And it looks like they're just starting med cycle, so it's still really early. I think a lot of times there's a fear, and I've heard from other just friends and other surrogates that I know going through the process, that sometimes you can tell with some of these intended parents, with the journeys that they've been on, that they don't really sometimes even quite believe that they're going to have a baby. Even when they see you like 9 months pregnant and we're going into delivery day, in the back of their mind, sometimes they're still preparing themselves for it not to work out. They don't really believe that they're going to go home with a baby until they have that baby in their hands. And it's such a heartbreaking thing to imagine, but just to remember, that we are surrogates because for us, family building has been easy. For some of us, it's even been accidental. And for anybody who's coming to surrogacy, they've explored and exhausted so many other alternative options. To bring in a stranger to carry your baby, and that trust that requires, is like, it takes a level of sacrifice and love to carry a baby for someone else. But I think to trust someone else to carry your baby is on another level that I can't even fully comprehend. Like, I don't know how I would do that. Like, how would I process that? Would I have the courage to do that, to build that relationship, to put myself out there? And we're like happy-go-lucky. Yay, we're doing this awesome thing for you. I'm going to be your surrogate. This is so exciting. I decided to be a surrogate. And then I, applied, and then I blinked, and then I was matched. I know it's a longer screening process than that, but for us, it's usually, between 3 to 6 months before we get matched. And for some of these intended parents, they've been on this infertility journey, like even Joey said, for 6 years before his daughter was born. So they've been in these trenches a lot longer than we have, when we sometimes, get the idea that we want to help someone, and then we jump in all smiles. I'm going to carry your baby for you. And sometimes, I can imagine how that'd be really hard for someone who's been on such a long, painful journey to be like, whoa. Like, yeah, you think it's all going to work out, but things don't always work out that easily or that way, or they haven't for me. So I think just having that perspective and understanding is helpful.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And I think that, again, that's going to be helpful in building that trusting relationship, right, with your intended parents. It's just kind of understanding, the journey of the intended parents, because like you said, I mean, we're all in different, we also just can't generalize it to everyone, but still, like, you want to understand what has been their process. Has it been, like, for example, for me, like 6 years, or has it been for someone? I've known people who have been on this journey for 12, 15 years, and cycle after cycle, starting with their own process, and then getting to a point where they finally accepted, okay, I think I'm going to go this route now with, using a surrogate. And sometimes it can be a lot harder for, an intended mother, um, and, one thing that I've just learned, and I'm so excited about getting more information on, especially when it comes to intended mothers. And I want to see how this can work psychologically and emotionally when an intended mother is having a hard time with using a surrogate, even though she's already there. And I've learned this thing, and I don't know if you guys have heard this, so please let me know, that, as an intended mother who is not going to carry their own child, that you can still build a bond with your child. Sometimes that's the fear, is like, also like, will I be able to bond with my child if I didn't carry the child, right? And one of the things that I've just come to learn is that, that there are amazing lactation coaches that can actually help a female, be able to produce milk so that they can actually feed their child that they did not carry. And I thought that was so amazing. And again, I don't have a lot of information to talk about this right now, but I just learned this, and I just kind of felt like I wanted just to throw that out there, because I think that this is going to be a way for an intended mother also to not feel like, outside of that process, that she has an opportunity to connect in some way that, maybe essentially at the beginning made her feel fearful about using a surrogate or something like that. So, I mean, hopefully next time we talk, I'll have more information about this, and just so that you can be aware of that. And maybe that can be a conversation to have if you feel comfortable with your intended parent about this other process, so that, that maybe they can learn. I know that with intended parents, once I have more information on this, I will be able to offer this information in my session, so that hopefully, there could be a different type of hope for that intended mother in that process.
I think that is a tricky process. My intended mother actually did relactate, and she nursed both of her son and daughter that I carried. Not for long, but she was able to relactate because she carried her daughter. I don't know if she had never lactated, if she would have been able to do it, but she had to take this medication that was not FDA approved, and like she had in it. It's an intense thing, and it can cause a lot of side effects like depression and stuff like that. Might be if it's something that you already struggle with. I guess it's kind of tricky but she was so gung-ho, like there was nothing going to stop her from nursing her babies. Like she didn't care what it took. She was going to do it, and she did, and it was amazing. There's also the NES. It's a NES. I forget what it stands for, but it's like a it's like a tube, and you attach it, so it's like you're breastfeeding, but it's a little different. But yeah, I think that really did help her to be able to have that closeness and that bonding. But even bottle feeding, when you get to look down at your baby and coo, and I mean, you fed your daughter, like those moments when you're feeding your baby and you look down at their face and you see that little satisfaction with that, like, they're so hungry, and they just depend on you for their entire sustenance. And whether you're bottle feeding or whether you're nursing, I think. And even if you do carry a baby, some moms have trouble bonding with the baby that they carried. It's just not something that's guaranteed to happen right away. And I think
Exactly.
being okay with that and not putting pressure and expectations on yourself is huge. But we all say those words, and then we don't take our own advice. I know.
Yeah.
I can, like, give yourself space, be nice to yourself, say nice things, and then I beat myself up anyways.
I have to tell her to stop constantly. Constantly. Stop it right now. Don't be mean to my friend. It's something that I did for my intended parents, and they hadn't really thought about it, and I thought it was a neat, so I love sharing this too. But on Amazon, good old Amazon, they have these belly buds that you can send to the intended parents, and they record a couple books, maybe a couple of their favorite books on that, and then they send it back to the surrogate. And when the time comes and you get to that week where it says baby can hear things now, I started playing that every day of the stories that the intended parents had read and put together. And it was just a really fun way to share, if they weren't there every day, to give an opportunity for this baby to know who his parents are and hear their voice. So that's a fun little gift that I've offered up to women to be able to maybe have and share with the parents. And the parents, I think, get excited at the idea of like, I didn't even know that was a thing. So it's fun to be able to have that as an
I
opportunity.
still have my
too.
belly buds sitting over here. Yeah.
I love it so much.
They're great. Yeah. And
you know what?
And they would record like just their day-to-day stuff too.
Yes.
Like she would record just going around the house or doing, whatever she's doing. And I would just play that stuff sitting at my desk and she could hear her mom. And
That's so
cool.
sweet.
Yeah. A topic that comes up constantly, Joey, you can maybe help to answer is if you should share on social media and like what that looks like. How do you navigate through that? If you decide that you do want to talk about your story, which I love seeing these ladies when they want to talk about their story, what things, if maybe the parents are wanting to be more discreet, they should hold back on. And do you have any insight or anything that you're thinking?
I think the important piece is just, again, understanding what you're comfortable with and having a discussion with each other about social media and what that means. I do believe that agencies have like some type of criteria on that they go over with surrogates. But I think it's important to still have that conversation with one another about, what you feel comfortable in terms of sharing on social media. I know that I had the conversation with my surrogate about, is it okay if I post like a picture of you with us, being, pregnant and that type of thing? And she was like, oh yeah, absolutely. I said, if you want to post anything about, the journey on your social media, we'd be okay with that. And she said, what, thank you for that. But she never did. I think she just was mindful that, this is your experience and I kind of want you guys to have that. But we did have that conversation and I did acknowledge that, hey, if you want to post something, we're okay. So again, just kind of having that open dialogue about like, is it okay? I know that I've met many other women who have been on this process where like, we really just kind of want to share our experience with others, which I think is great,
Mm-hmm.
But again, it just depends on like, the comfort level of both parties and what you agree on.
Well, what about being friends with your intended parents on social media? What are your thoughts about that during the journey? I know some say not to be friends on social media until after delivery. So we did that for my second journey. My first one, we were friends as soon as we matched on Facebook, but they were just like that. One of the intended fathers was like, "You're on Facebook? I'm adding you right now," So, and then the other, we really deferred to what the agency and the attorneys recommended us not be friends on Facebook. And then after the baby was born, we were immediately friends and we've been friends on Facebook ever since. And I love following their life and seeing the baby and all the updates and stuff. Like she's starting to talk now. She's 6 months old. Like I think that last baby I delivered, and it's just so cute. I love being friends with them on social media, but I wonder is it just an individual thing too, like anything?
I think that's tricky too, because a lot can come from social media. It can raise up a lot of anxieties and questions. And sometimes as intended parents, again, we create like these narratives of like, oh, I just saw her like in this picture, and like all of a sudden maybe something can shift and it can really change the relationship. So that's a tricky one. I think, I think it's like a case by case type of thing of like, as an intended parent, like what do you know about yourself and what awareness do you have about what you see on social media generally? And do you feel that that's something that's going to like influence the way how you're going to behave towards someone? And if that's the thing, then the conversation to have is like, okay, is it appropriate for me to be friends with my surrogate right now, or kind of follow the agency's guidelines on that? For me, my surrogate and I became friends on social media right away as well, and but I was like, okay, like she was posting like, not just about the pregnancy themselves, but just of, things that she was doing, like, flying. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's where she's at right now. Like she's over Colorado right now, and or this and that, and after she had gave me like, an explanation of the safety on flying and the airplane and stuff, like I said, my anxiety went, completely away. And so when I would see her, flying everywhere, it was okay for me. But I was able to kind of manage all of those things. So again, it's about understanding, like, what you struggle with, and would you be okay with that? So it's like a tricky thing, but I think it just depends.
I kind of think it's better not to during the pregnancy too, because like you said, you could post a picture and maybe and especially with COVID fears and stuff. So say you're going over to dinner at your family's house and you know that you're with your family and everyone's vaccinated, and maybe they're like, well, I don't know these people, and are that, it just might, some of these things might generate fear,
Yeah.
and make parents think that maybe you're doing something that's unsafe, even if you know that you've thought out all the details of it, and then they don't want to ask you, or I don't know. But during COVID, it's so much trickier, some of those things too, I think.
Yeah, it is really tricky. But I think that, again, you just kind of have to measure it. And I think, again, agencies set the guidelines for a reason. And so it just depends on, like, again, what you can handle. But I do believe that, if, again, you're the type of individual that can be easily influenced by what you see on social media, then again, it's probably best to follow agency guidelines, because like you said, even you got COVID in it, and it brings up all these other fears and anxieties. And just being friends on social media can also kind of, rupture the relationship that you have with your surrogate or intended parent. So just kind of being mindful of that. And I think really, again, it's up to the both parties to kind of weigh in on that and have a discussion about that. But again, just always remembering, if the guideline is there, it's maybe for a reason too.
Yeah. And then there was one question specifically someone had asked recently. Her intended parents were like, how are you doing? What can we do for you? We'd like to, get you something, or what could we send you that would be helpful? And she didn't know how to answer that question. So that a default answer is always, I'm fine, I don't need anything. But what do intended parents, if they are asking, what can I do to support you? Sometimes saying nothing is then they really want to give something. I wonder what would be appropriate to share if you, I don't know, like, you don't, what can I could use a massage, but no, they're like, no, don't go to a massage. You're going to get COVID. So who knows? I don't know what would be appropriate to share if they ask what you need, if you want anything.
So I was an intended parent who did check in with my surrogate from time to time, to check in to see how she was doing and see if she needed anything, and, just like you just mentioned, her response was always like, I'm cool, like, I don't need anything. And so then that's when I would try to change my phrasing of the question and just be like, well, is there anything that you need that I can do to support you during this process? And sometimes, well, actually not sometimes, the whole time she was like, no, I'm cool, I don't need anything. And so then I just took it upon myself to just be like, you know what, I want to do something for her. So as an intended parent, I signed up for some program, I think it's called Bump Journeys or something like that, where she received a package every month, and the package was designed to support her in the level of pregnancy that she was at each month. So whatever happened in that second month, the third month, like they sent her little things that she could use during that month based on where the pregnancy was. And so I did that for her. But I think that if you're talking about how can I respond to that question, if you don't need anything, I think it's always okay to just say, like, it's so sweet that, you're asking, to send me something that's so sweet. I really appreciate that. But right now I'm okay. But I'll definitely will let you know if I need something. Just kind of being able to decline, in a very polite way, but also letting them know, like, if I need something, I'll definitely let you know, and we can have a conversation about that. Or if you feel like you do need a massage, or you feel like, what, it would be nice to just kind of have like a day where I can, get outside my house to maybe, I don't know, get a facial or whatever. I don't know. what it is also okay to be like, well, I've been thinking about this and I don't know what your thoughts are. You don't have to do this, but it would just be nice to kind of have something like this. And then your intended parents will either be like, oh, I hear that. They'll probably send you a certificate or I don't know. But I think it's okay to just kind of be open with your intended parents, just like as you would with a friend. If your friend was asking you like, hey girl, like, what do you need or whatever it is, and you can just be like, well, you can have a conversation with them. I think that it's important to be transparent, or even if there's like a reservation about like, I don't want you to have to spend money on this or do this, you can just say that, like, what, it's really sweet, but I'm really mindful of the, the expenses, and I don't want you to have to go through that. And then your intended parents can give you feedback on that. Like, maybe it's not about the money. I just want to be there for you. And then I think it's okay to sometimes just be like, okay, it's okay that they want to be here for me. And I'm going to just receive this because they're wanting to give you that. So, it's okay to decline. It's okay to accept. It's okay to have a conversation about it.
I love your communication style.
Yeah. No. My second couple was from Moscow, Russia, and culturally, their way of showing that they appreciated was they wanted to gift. Every single time they saw me, they wanted to gift me something. And I was so uncomfortable with it because I was like, I'm doing something. This is like, for me, this is a big deal. I'm doing this for you. You don't gift me anything. Like, this is what I want to do for you. And my agency finally had to say, stop saying no to them. Like, let them gift you something. Let them do something, because this is their way of, they're not able to be there every single day. They're not, this is their way of being able to feel like they're accomplishing something, and you're doing something so big as the surrogate. So, just say thank you and let them know how much you appreciate them. And so that was something I had to learn, because I don't receive gifts as easily. I'm like, it's an awkward feeling. And I feel like, gosh, you don't need to do that. Like, I want to do this for you. I'm here because I want to. And so I had to learn that. It didn't come easy.
And you bring up a good, important point there, Casey, is that, you also have to think about like cultural norms, right? With different people that you're working with. And sometimes that's probably the cultural thing, to do, and understanding like, okay, well, if that's part of their norm, then, also kind of, I guess, just understanding that and maybe trying to be okay with that. Like you said, you had to learn that, right? But I think that here it can go either way, right? It's either like whether the surrogate is gifting the intended parent something, and we're like, it's okay, like, you're already giving me this big gift, or the intended parents wanting to also give you something. So just know that, for this conversation here, and for all of you that are listening and who are surrogates, or that, that we're both probably feeling the exact same thing. And so it's okay to just kind of have a conversation about that and just get to a point where you both feel comfortable, because again, this is about building, a relationship, right? And part of that is communication, just kind of seeing what you're comfortable with, what you're not comfortable with, and just having an open dialogue about that as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Couldn't agree more. Absolutely.
That's it. Open dialogue. That's the thing. That's the ticket. We all know it, but then we have to put it into practice. So, and sometimes refusing a gift can be really hurtful too. So if somebody wants to give you something and you're like, no, I don't need that, or I don't want that, that can be really hurtful. If somebody really was excited about giving you a gift or wanted to give you something and you reject it, that can be worse than taking the gift. So just take it and say thank you so much.
Yeah.
I think the only thing I wanted to ask you, Joey, is there any like trigger words that when you're going into this that you recommend the surrogates avoid, or like, I had a really great easy pregnancy, or anything that might trigger these intended parents who haven't had it as easy or struggled? Is there things that you could give these girls some advice on how to navigate through that too?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, yes, definitely being mindful just that, any intended parent going through this process has a history, with their own way of going through this process, whether if you are a heterosexual couple or a, gay couple, like, we've all had our struggles. And I think that, just being mindful of that, I think it's just key. Just the understanding that, if you're going to work with intended parents, there's already a history there of some type of, you know, struggle or difficulty or loss or grief, things that we've all kind of dealt with. And so it just being mindful that, you know, your journey, which I'm glad that, you know, was really great and that it was really easy, you know, for me personally, it didn't impact me, because I think my surrogate and I talked about it, and she told me that, you know, her doctor was like, "Oh, you're a champ at this. You're a pro. Like, this is so good. Like, this is meant for you," right? For me, that kind of her sharing her experience with pregnancy, it made me feel more like, oh, this is good. Like, this is really good to understand that as a gay man, you know, but it might not always be like that for everybody else. So just kind of being mindful and just, you know, kind of, you know, if an intended parent is asking about your experience, then, you know, that door is open for you to have that conversation, but just maybe kind of just kind of like just testing the waters of being like, okay, so can I, or how do you frame it? You know, like, you know what, instead of maybe saying like, gosh, like, you know, pregnancy is like, it's just like whatever for me. It's like so easy, you know, maybe just kind of framing it like, you know what, I really had healthy pregnancies. You know, I guess also just kind of the framing and the wording can really make a big difference as to how someone's going to receive that.
Girls, and it's probably a good opportunity to put it out here because we'll be able to share this with other ladies. But when the surrogate is pregnant and she's on to finding her OB, having a conversation with the provider that you've decided to use, making sure that that provider is comfortable working with surrogates, and also what that experience is with the doctor. Because when the intended parents are coming to these appointments with the surrogates, if you have a doctor who is less than kind or has a different view on surrogacy, that can trickle over to the intended parents' experience with all of this. So I always share, if you can, you know, make sure that that doctor that you're going to use for the 9 months that these intended parents are going to come and be a part of this journey can have a good experience, and knowing that the doctor's going to be respectful and kind to the entire process of everything, and mindful of all of that. So, you know, that's something I always share with the ladies, but it's just it helps set that relationship up for success and that process up for success. You don't want to be with a doctor who's going to be poo-pooing the idea of surrogacy and doesn't agree with it and thinks it's wrong, and then every time you go into that appointment, he has something or she has something negative to say about the process, you know. So,
which is shockingly common. It's ridiculous that there's a doctor that would be that way. But yes, I have encountered them.
Yep.
And I'm glad that you share this, and it's important. I think this is another great way of a surrogate developing or building her relationship with her intended parents, because, so again, going back to my experience, is that my surrogate was a rock star in where she kind of bridged that gap for me and my husband with her OB. Is like, yeah, I'm pregnant, but they're the parents and they need to be a part of this process. And I really appreciate that, because I, you know, there's at some point at the beginning, or even just kind of with other intended parents that I interview, there's like that feeling of like the doctor sees me and I'm just like the outsider, right? And that could feel, excluding and not so well. So like you said, kind of talking to your OB, finding out where they stand on this. Are they experienced with surrogacy? Are they going to be able not just to provide you the amazing care, but also be able to, provide that also for the intended parents? So kind of bridging that gap and allowing the intended parents that opportunity to communicate with your doctors, so it can be important. I know that there's different guidelines on that, depending where you go, but for me and my surrogate, she really just kind of facilitated that. And it was great that if I had a question, that she was like, you can just go ahead and I give you permission to reach out to the doctor to ask that question. And I felt like, oh, well, that's really nice. When she gave me that permission, I really didn't have to do any of that, but it was nice that it was there. And I never felt like I wasn't the dad or the intended parent going through this process. It just felt nice.
So good. Yeah.
So important, because you're already, as an intended parent, with building your family through surrogacy, especially as a woman, if you are feeling a lot of feelings about not having been able to carry your own pregnancy, you're already an outsider of something that you feel like you should be inside of. And so having a doctor that's really supportive and inclusive of the intended mother in that process too is really going to go a long way, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So good.
I think it's awesome. I think the whole process, I think it takes so much courage and bravery on the parts of all parties. And it's super cool to be able to build relationships with someone. Like for me, for both of my sets of intended parents that I carried for, they're people that I would never have met. And they're unlike other people that I know. Like they're just not somebody that I ever would have crossed paths with in any other way if I had just gone through my life without ever stumbling into surrogacy. And I love that we have grown. And I think that, same for them and meeting me, like we are able to grow and learn so much about just humanity. And I think it's really made me more open-hearted and loving to people who are different than I am, because I know that inside of every person is just a really awesome, like magic little spark of humanity. And as much as there are differences between everyone, everybody has that light inside, that if you get the opportunity to get as close as you do through surrogacy or through friendship or through, even when you think about people you've worked with in work relationships, that you're like, I never would have talked to this person, but this is my work wife or my work best friend, whatever. It's really cool. So take advantage and take the opportunity to build those relationships. I think that we'll all be better for it, is my takeaway from surrogacy.
Absolutely.
I concur.
Yeah.
I know it's getting late. Are there any last minute questions anybody wants to throw out? Anything anybody wants to share or add, or anything you guys want to?
Don't be shy. We want the questions. We want to be able to answer these things for you ladies.
Absolutely.
Well, last call.
This is fun. Okay. This is part of this. We enjoy being able to talk with you guys and give you guys feedback. Thank you, Joey, so much for letting us pick your brain through all of this. And we just appreciate everything you're doing in the industry and helping these women and these intended parents. So thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of this platform here and to be able to share a little bit of my experience and insights. I think it's important to always have a discussion and just kind of learn and build relationships.
Yeah. Thank you, Joey, so much. Right. I think we'll probably see you again soon. We'll have another chat.
Wonderful. Well, everyone have a wonderful Friday and a holiday season, and take care.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.